Did you get any sense, because God, it must have been rough to be an A&M fan last fall. Did you get a sense the way in which A&M lost last year, right? That the offense just is not at all in the Arkansas game at all. They give up a safety to lose the Mississippi State game as they're trying to drive the field. Devin Achane rushes for 9 yards a carry, and they stop giving him the ball in the Ole Miss game. They're up.
I still need to be explained that one.
Yes, same.
Yeah, LSU too. That happened in LSU, by the way. He had that drive in the third quarter, where he touched the ball like 6 times, and then they scored a touchdown, and then he did not touch the ball again the rest of the night. Yeah, I still need to be explained why that happened.
Up 4, I think, with the opportunity to ice that LSU game with a couple of minutes left with a 3rd and 2, and then give up the long drive to lose that game. So, is there introspection about situational play calling, the way the offense is organized? It's easy to say Zach Calzada was the quarterback, and that hamstrung our ability to do certain things. And I think that's a totally fair viewpoint. But is there any sort of introspection about how the offense is handled?
I sure hope so. For their sake, because and this is the question, and Jimbo got this question a lot after games last year, was why did you not run the ball more down the stretch? And a lot of it was he defaulted to that he's calling a lot of RPOs, and so that is leaving the decision on your quarterback to call it. And my thing is and hopefully this is something I can get into him a little bit as we get further closer to the season. My thing is, why don't you just like line up in the pistol and just hand it off, turn around and hand it off to A-Chain? Forget RPOs. Like there's sometimes where you just have to, and I think Jimbo's track record is a guy who really does believe in running the ball. But I have noticed in some of these games, there was times where Zach Calzada was throwing the ball 40 times, and that's not your best offensive weapon. Right. It just wasn't. And so that is something I'm curious to know how much of that evolves or changes. And I wonder also how much that goes back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier with Ainias Smith. How much is Ainias Smith involved in this backfield? Do you go back to using him the way San Francisco 49ers used a Deebo Samuel? Because they did that a couple of years ago with Ainias when he had, I think, 40 carries and 40 catches, something or another. So that I think if you get back to doing that, you can provide a little bit more balance in this offense. But yeah, it's hard to say because the offensive staff is virtually the same. Everybody, they have a new offensive line coach with Steve Adazio, but everybody else is in place. The offensive coordinator is still Darrell Dickey. Jimbo's still the play caller. I went and listened to Jimbo at a clinic, the Lone Star Clinic down here in College Station a couple months ago, and I mean, he's an intelligent guy, and he makes way more money. He's a coach. He's paid to do this. So I mean, I'm not a play caller. I'm not a coach, but I certainly would try to adjust if I could how much I'm running the ball, especially when it's working. I think that's the thing that's the most frustrating. It's not running the ball. It's getting away from it when it's working. It happened in the Arkansas game too. And Isaiah Spiller was really, really good. And I don't think for the last 8 minutes of the game, I don't think they ran the ball, or at least not handed it to him. And to me, that's something that's got to be fixed. And I think that's going to take some humility and some introspection on Jimbo's part to fix this year.
My final question, I don't know what else you have, Ty, but we've touched on defensive players, but there is a new defensive coordinator in DJ Durkin. Jimbo has been outspoken about, we run a 4-2-5 here. This is the defense we run here. Mike Elko did a very good job running the 4-2-5 that we wanted to run, and now DJ Durkin comes in and he is going to run what we want to run. What is expected about DJ Durkin's unique tweaks or influence on what Texas A&M is already doing on an extremely successful level? What is expected this fall and beyond about the DJ Durkin seasoning to this defense?
Yeah, and I think Jimbo was aggressive with the way he framed that, because also this is the personnel they have.
Correct.
And so they're really deep on the defensive line. They're really deep in the defensive backfield. They're not so deep at linebacker. So I think that fits what you have, and that's what you recruited to. But DJ's got, and I think he softened a little bit on it. DJ's got a background in multiple fronts and has worked in multiple fronts over the years. Has a pretty good reputation. There has been, and Jimbo has mentioned that he has done a little bit of tweaking throughout the spring ball and added a little bit of his own ideas and twists, which it's his job. I mean, Jimbo's got to run the offense. It's not going to be Jimbo out there calling defenses. So at the end of the day, this is DJ's baby. And ultimately, it is going to have his stamp and his blueprint on it. But yeah, the alignment is going to be based on their strengths and personnel, and that makes a whole ton of sense. And especially when you look in the secondary, they have a lot of options in nickel. Antonio Johnson was a star at nickel last year and can be that again. But if they want to move him around and they have other options, they can do that with as well. But yeah, DJ, I think when you see some of the things that they did at Ole Miss last year, I think you could see some of that trickling down from an A&M standpoint this year too, just because that's part of his background. He's been in this conference now for a couple of years, and he was in it before, back in his Florida days. So he knows what works, he knows what doesn't. And I think with the talent on hand, some of it's going to have to grow up, and a lot of it is going to be interesting because so many of these guys are young, especially the guys up front. So there's going to be some growing pains, I think. But overall, I don't have the feeling that it's going to be anything but what DJ's vision is, just with obviously within what Jimbo wants it to be.